This is Tyson Chandler, and you're listening to The Scores Table.
And thank you, Tyson. This is The Scores Table, as you just heard, Episode 3 with myself, Spencer Davies, Bob Demyan over there on the other side. We just got some new mics, and I've got a new mic stand. I'm really excited to do this right now, and I know Bob's pretty excited to do it too.
Yes, I am, even though I'm a little bit less aggressive about it as you.
I mean, I'm showing my enthusiasm right now, but hey, you know what? All right, enough of us. We haven't done this in a little while. I think it's been a couple weeks, actually.
Yeah, I had a crazy personal week last week I bought a new car, actually, and just a couple other things, and just couldn't get up here to do the podcast with you, but we're ready to roll again this week.
Certainly. So we're going to start things off with the opening tip. The Washington Wizards, they've won 8 of 10, 13 straight at home at the Verizon Center. What's been behind their success, and how high of a ceiling do you think that team has?
Well, it started off with John Wall's playing amazing basketball just in general. Should be on the All-Star team, which we're recording this on Thursday before the reserves are announced here. He definitely should be a reserve. But another key is Bradley Beal's been healthy. He's played 41 of the 45 games the Wizards have played this year. He's been a really important piece to what they're doing. Hopefully he can stay healthy going forward, because this is the leap we thought the Wizards were going to make last year after their decent postseason a couple years ago. But they had injuries. Their ceiling to me is probably second round, home court in the East for the first round, like 4 seed, somewhere around there. That's where I think they're going. But I'm very happy with how they're playing as of late. It's good for them.
To interject, I actually think that not just their backcourt, but Markieff Morris, something I saw when we were doing prep here, was that he's scored in double figures in 17 straight games. And I think he's had like 4 or 5 double-doubles in that stretch. That's been huge. It's not just about what your star players get you. It's about what those extra pushing guys in your starting lineup that really give you a boost. And Markieff Morris has done a really good job of doing that.
Yeah, and I really like Otto Porter as well. He was the guy who I liked in that year's draft, actually. And he's been a good piece. Started kind of emerging late last year and kind of just has gone all out this year, and kind of had a breakout year for him as well. Another question. So they just played the Celtics the other night, and they did the all black, it's a funeral thing. What did you think of that, personally?
I like it. I mean, I know you think it's a little childish, but I've been over this before. I like rivalry in the NBA. We talked about the Cavs and the Warriors. We talked about the things that happened between Damian Lillard and D'Angelo Russell, and all those other little fights. I enjoy it. I think it's entertaining, and what happened between Jay Crowder and John Wall before clearly fueled the fire a little bit, and Wizards went in there and they won that game.
Yeah, they did. And I think the all black thing was a little childish for game 43 of the regular season. I mean, regardless of the result, the Celtics still have 37 games to go. I mean, not really going to bury anybody at this point of the season. Didn't like it. I liked it from the fact of a chemistry standpoint from the Wizards, actually. Because it'll kind of just bring the whole team together. They're all in, to beat the Celtics this one game. You clearly knew there was a motivating factor there with their recent rivalry. But I also thought it was kind of like the Celtics didn't have to do that because they have a winning tradition. And the Wizards, they've been mostly irrelevant for at least my lifetime. And I'm 28. So outside of a couple years, I think it just shows the difference between cultures. And that was a concern of mine, or that's a concern of mine with the Wizards. But in general, I like that they're doing. I just didn't like that in particular.
I like it just because it shows a little bit of a swagger, I guess. They've been missing that. They've been missing a certain swagger, and that's something they need to get back in order to have success. I mean, it's huge as far as a confidence standpoint. It's not. I mean, sometimes it can go as far as cockiness, but it's huge.
Up next, the Philadelphia 76ers here. They've been the hottest team in the Eastern Conference, actually. They've won 10 of their last 13, believe it or not. They're 5 games out of the 8th seed in the East. Is the playoffs feasible for the Sixers? Well, what's going on there, Spence?
I've been talking about it for the past couple weeks. They've gotten so much confidence out of Joel Embiid that it's trickled down to their entire roster. You're seeing guys like TJ McConnell make a huge impact. You're seeing guys like Robert Covington playing to their highest ability. You're seeing Nerlens Noel even having a solid, stretch here. So it's like the leadership of Joel Embiid makes such a huge difference for that club because it's instilling those values into them, basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think it's more of a confidence than a leadership.
I mean, yeah, you could say it in that way, but I mean, you need to have a huge impact to change a culture of an actual team.
I think maybe it's like he gives them hope.
Okay.
Before, when they were just, sorry for the pun, they were going through the process with the Sixers, and they're tanking, and they're atrocious teams the past couple years. But now with Embiid and him finally being on the court after a couple years being on the shelf, and seeing him play amazing. And, I talked about it last week, how much I love Joel Embiid and what he's doing on the court. He's made a big difference for them, I think, in confidence, as you said, and I think it's giving the Sixers franchise hope.
And it's an individual effort to do that, too. Like he's having fun. He's making them have fun is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. And you need that. For the last 3 to 5 years, maybe even more, the Sixers have just been a laughingstock of this entire league. And now you're seeing them actually competing. And believe it or not, like you said, they're 5 games out of the 8th seed right now. And that team believes in itself. And there's nothing more dangerous than a team that believes in itself. And they are playing high competition. They beat the Raptors. They've been all hands on deck.
Playing great defense, too.
Yes, they are the top team in the last 10 games in net rating defensively. So, and if you look at that roster, you're like, what? But it's happening.
And I think this really started to take notice where after that TJ McConnell game winner, Joel Embiid said the P word. And it kind of said, wait a second. They actually believe in themselves. And for an organization that now has hope to believe in themselves, it's a great thing going forward for the 76ers.
The main point I have with the Sixers here is they held on to their head coach. Brett Brown, he's been around since 2013. And a lot of other teams around the league don't do this. You see guys like Dave Yeager in Memphis, very short shelf life, went over to Sacramento. You have situations like what happened in
Mike Malone.
Yeah, Mike Malone over in Sacramento was another one I was going to mention. It's just something that NBA teams are starting to show less patience, and it's nice to see this one come to fruition for Brown because that's a lot of work they've put in over these past 4 or 5 years. It's good to see because those players, they want to win for Brett Brown, and Brett Brown sees that they're trying. And to another point, we heard all sorts of drama about Nerlens Noel earlier in the year. I haven't heard a peep about it since. And Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor, they have been taking this situation so professionally for their age. Guys, these players are like 21, 22 years old. And they want to be on the court. They want the spotlight maybe. They want the playing time. But these guys are as professional as it has been as you can find. And it's really refreshing to see that these young guys haven't been all about me. They're taking the team spirit, and winning cures everything. That's all I got to say about the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, that's great with what Okafor and Noel have done because and as going back to our point on changing a culture, it's starting that, I hate to keep on using the word process, but it literally is keeping that going, and you compare it to someone like the baby Lakers out west. You think about Nick Young and how immature that was with D'Angelo Russell, and you don't think of that with really any of the young guys on the Sixers squad, any of them. They've just been all very professional, and it's showing that everything's turning around in Philly.
You just hope that Joel Embiid stays healthy. That's what you want because he had a real bad scare last week about his knee when it buckled. But they're saying it was just a little bit. All right, last part of the opening tip here. Carmelo Anthony. He's been linked to the Cavs in a number of trade rumors. He's been linked to the Celtics and, most recently, the Clippers. Is he a New York Knick by the end of February?
At the end of the day, I think he will be a New York Knick because I don't see, Like the recent Clippers rumor doesn't involve one of the Clippers' big three. I don't see what the Knicks could get in return. And they're just saying we don't care what we get back, just get him out of here. The Clippers, there's a decent fit, but there's not a fit for him in Cleveland. And as a Cavs fan, I wouldn't give up a second round pick for him. But that's beside the point. He's a ball stopper. All those negative things. I think he stays with the Knicks because he wants to live in New York, and he has that no trade clause. And I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. So I think it's just him and Phil Jackson have a staring contest because it's clear I don't think they like each other, and they want to separate. But I think Phil's more likely to leave soon than Carmelo.
That's an interesting take, and it's hard who to place the blame on because what have they had? 3 different head coaches in 2 years, right? Fisher,
Rambis, and Hornacek.
Rambis, and Jeff Hornacek.
Rambis was never.
He was an interim.
Yeah,
he was an interim when they fired Derek Fisher last season.
Yeah, he didn't get the interim tag removed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and he's still on the staff, right, with the Knicks.
Yeah,
they're such a train wreck.
They are.
This is such a mirror situation to like when the Browns had Mike Holmgren, and everyone thought that Mike Holmgren should coach the Browns and all that, and he never did. He just kept hiring his guys. His guys run his West Coast offense, and now the same thing's happening in New York. Oh, and Mike was never there. Where's Phil Jackson? He's in Montana all the time. Like, is he really around? Is he around the organization? And outside of drafting Kristaps Porzingis, has he really helped the roster at all?
Bringing in Derrick Rose really hasn't worked out too great.
I mean, you know my opinions on Derrick Rose. I'm not a
We
fan
do.
of his play.
Yep.
Joakim Noah too. I mean, he's just been a non-factor. Had a great free throw attempt the other night too.
Oh my gosh,
So
I can't believe that there's actual professional players that shoot free throws like that. But you know, I don't know if you're gonna have too many friends that are Knicks fans that listen to this thing. If you hear them compare Phil Jackson to Mike Holmgren from the Browns, a Browns comparison for the Knicks, I think it's brilliant personally. But I don't know if they're gonna be too big of a fan of that.
They're the Browns of the NBA. They've just been a train wreck forever.
Hot takes.
I mean, I don't know. It's the Knicks, and I mean, I want that franchise to be good again. Eventually, it'd be great to have New York basketball,
Of course.
the Mecca and the Madison Square Garden be popping again. But it's not under this roster construction. It's not under this regime at all. I mean, they're 7 games under 500, something like that. It's not good there, and they should be better. They really should.
Oh, man, enough of the Knicks. I mean, we said we only talk about the Knicks so much, but we just had to bring it up with these Carmelo Anthony trade rumors.
Yeah.
Moving on, though. We'll take 2 from the stripe. Bob and I have one specific topic that we each want to take on. So, Bob will start us off on this one.
Last week, the All-Star starters came out. And from the West, I'll just highlight that the backcourt had Golden State guard Steph Curry and James Harden. Notable omission, and it is Thunder guard Russell Westbrook, who, in case you're unaware, is averaging a triple-double this year. And there's outrage. Oh my God, Russell Westbrook's not starting the All-Star game. He's averaging a triple-double. Ah! There's one issue, fans that say that. You voted for Steph Curry. You're the reason why Russell Westbrook's not starting the All-Star game. Last night I saw a petition on Twitter to Adam Silver to make him switch and all that. Well, the media and the players put Russ as a starter in the West. Those reached 25% of the vote. The 50% of the vote, which was the fans, said Steph Curry. Russ missed out because of that. So to all those fans, it's your fault. You're the ones who voted for Zaza Pachulia and Steph Curry instead. I mean, I know a lot of those were Warriors fans, and I know you vote for your team. But at the end of the day, it's still the fans as the people who made this happen. And yeah, he'll get announced as a reserve later, and he'll play a lot of minutes, and that'll be fun. He'll have a great All-Star game performance.
He'll win MVP.
Possibly. He'll probably be the favorite. I don't know, though. But yeah, I mean, it's literally the fans' fault, and I get the outrage that he is averaging a triple-double and not starting. But at the end of the day, it's your fault. Like,
shame on you, NBA fans. Shame. Because of you, we have We have Kyrie Irving starting the All-Star game over Isaiah Thomas. That's what I really was mad about because Isaiah Thomas has been probably the clutchest person in the NBA this entire year.
He's Deion Waiters has something to say about that recently.
Duly noted. But I will say, with Isaiah Thomas, he leads the league in scoring in the fourth quarter, and he's been he's been putting that team on his back, basically.
Well, and there's 5 point guards from the Eastern Conference that you could argue any one of them.
Right. Kemba, Kyle Lowry, Kyrie Irving,
John Wall,
and yep.
Yeah, there's 5 great ones in the East now.
Mm-hmm.
In the West, there's literally 2 guards that are far above and beyond.
It's hilarious. And it's hilarious. Those 2 aren't even both starters. That's what's so stupid.
And this is not a diss on Steph, but it's clearly Harden and Russ. But I mean, I'll be honest. I did vote. I did the hashtag NBA vote, and I didn't vote for Russ. But I also assumed everyone else was. I did the Joel Embiid. I did DeMarcus Cousins. I LeBron, Giannis. That's who I wanted to vote for. But I figured Russ would be in, to be honest. So maybe that's my fault. Maybe it's partially my fault as well. But it's all the fans' fault. They had 50% of the vote.
It's a fair point. All right, so my topic. So the San Antonio Spurs, they've ripped off 5 straight games. As soon as Pau Gasol goes down, they look like they have not missed one beat. And not that saying that Pau Gasol was who was carrying them by any means, but still, the way that Gregg Popovich instills these guys into their offense, and they just automatically get it, it doesn't take any time for them to grasp these concepts, is just so mind-boggling to me. Rookie DeJounte Murray out of Washington, 20 years old, 6-0 with him as their starting point guard when Tony Parker isn't playing. Okay? You have Dwayne Dedmon, who was on the Orlando Magic, basically just a bench warmer, playing significant minutes for the Spurs and producing as an actual productive rotational player. David Lee, who we know with the Celtics didn't do much. We know he did a lot with the Warriors. We know that, and was he Dallas? Was he in Dallas at some point? But anyways, with David Lee coming in and actually providing an offensive punch and playing defense, and it's a perfect guy for the Spurs if you really ask me. It's just so crazy to me how Pop can just take these guys. Bryn Forbes the other day played 14 minutes, had 8 points and a couple rebounds. It's just, he's the GOAT. He is the GOAT, and I don't think there's any argument against Gregg Popovich as the GOAT. Dude, I just don't think there's any debating it. I mean, LeBron said it the other day, he's the GOAT. I share the same opinion as the King.
I mean, I agree that Pop probably is the GOAT, but not there being an argument. Don't know about that. There is one. I personally think he is the greatest as well. The thing is with the San Antonio Spurs is he's just created a system over these 20 years that he's been the coach there. And it's just a perfect storm of just getting guys to buy in, believing in what's going on, and then just making them productive and making them in the best situations to produce on a game-by-game basis. And he was ahead of his time with resting players, ahead of his time on monitoring minutes, and even the spacing. He's been ahead of the game for years on that, and it's really what he's doing in general to just make the Spurs who they are on all levels.
It sounds like such a general conclusion, but I just feel like he's the GOAT. Obviously with Timmy off, you think that the Spurs maybe might go another direction, but they're still in it and they're still doing what they're doing.
See, Tim Duncan's great. He's the greatest power forward to ever play the game in my eyes. Love Tim Duncan. But I never really thought there was going to be a drop-off, with him retiring in the offseason. I just always thought, the Spurs will be fine. You just kind of, the Spurs will be top 3 seed in the West and move on. That's what you think of with the Spurs right now, and that's just what they're going to be until they're not.
Yeah.
The first year that they fall off, people are going to be like, wait, what? What's going on? but that'll probably be after Pop retires.
It's going to be a sad day, the day that Pop retires. And I don't think it's happening anytime soon, to tell you the truth. I really don't.
I hope not.
Yeah, same here. Okay, so us Cleveland guys, we have to get into what's going on right down the road here about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 2-6 in their last 8. As I mentioned in our last podcast, it's their annual January rut. It happens every year. It's happened for 3 straight years now. Things are really starting to get tense in that locker room and around Independence. LBJ is not happy. There's reports of his frustration with ownership not spending enough money somehow.
It's ridiculous.
He wants a playmaker. So I'll ask you this. What in the world gets the wine and gold back on track?
2009 me is going to hate me when I say this, but they need J.R. Smith back. J.R. Smith means so much to this team, not just on the court, where he can be a playmaker, great shooter. He'll fix the rotation that has Iman Shumpert and DeAndre Liggins been starting since he's been absent. But I think J.R. Smith is key to the Cavaliers' locker room, because J.R. was kind of the bridge between the big three and the rest of the guys, the Tristan Thompsons, Richard Jeffersons, everyone else. He was the bridge. And I think his personality, having fun, helped the Cavs kind of not be on edge all the time and feel the pressure, because J.R. Smith refused to put on a shirt and things of that nature. So I really think when the Cavs getting him back will be obviously a huge key on the court, but I think it'll be a huge key for them mentally as well.
I have to agree. These guys look like they're not paid to play basketball right now. They're in such a rut. They're in such a mental
They're going
hole.
through the motions, and they're punting January. That's what they're doing. They are punting January.
Punting January.
Just because they're one of few teams in the NBA that the regular season actually means nothing to.
Yeah.
All that matters is the Cavs make the playoffs, which is a lock. I think I'm safe to say that.
I think you're good. I think you're okay with
Because
that.
no one, there's outside of the 8 to 14 games that are played in the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, those are the only games that matter to the Cavaliers. So they're just all preparing for that. So yeah, you're in game 40. You got 40 more to go. So they're mentally blocking out the defensive side of the basketball. Like, they're not having fun at this point.
No.
They go on a long West Coast trip.
You're not getting a lot out of the secondary guys. I mentioned that Markieff Morris thing earlier. You're not getting a lot out of the secondary guys. LeBron is carrying the team. Kyrie Irving is carrying the team. They're not getting a lot out of Tristan Thompson. Kevin Love's been here and there in this stretch.
Well, he had that back thing.
Well, yeah, he had a back issue, and that doesn't help either. And this is what I wanted to go back to too is the injuries have not helped the case here. As you mentioned, J.R. Smith's been out for a couple months here and there, and he's out until April. And then you had Chris Burban Anderson was brought here to be an enforcer in another body. He went down with a torn ACL. LeBron said that you can't get a playmaker out of thin air. You can't go out and just see one and say, "Hey, I want it." Okay? He mentioned that they could have went after Michael Beasley. He mentioned that they could have went after Raymond Felton. But to the point is, David Griffin's going to take his time to find somebody, but he will find somebody because that's how good of a GM he's been.
But they have no assets, zero.
They really don't. They really don't. I mean, you're. Let's be honest. Our top asset is probably Iman Shumpert, right?
Yeah.
Is that your best chip?
I guess.
Yeah.
I've never been a big Iman Shumpert fan, but
Yeah. But, I mean, other teams could be, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So, I mean, you're not getting a game changer necessarily is what I'm saying. What you need to do is the team needs to get healthy. Kyle Korver needs to stop pressing. That's another thing.
well, they also need more practice reps too with him.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely. It takes time for people to fit in, unless
but
you're on San Antonio.
Right. They got him in that West Coast trip. No time to practice. They just got home, started playing some games here at the Q.
Yep.
And now they're really just starting to be able to get into a rhythm. And then what's going to happen? They're going to have the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
By that time that happens, and then you're going to spend a week away from these guys. So it's gonna be a little bit before the Cavs can really get in rhythm in general.
There is a silver lining in this, though. Toronto Raptors have not taken one bit of advantage of this. They've lost 5 straight, while the Cavs have gone 2-6 in their last 8. So they're not exactly doing their best to get the number 1 seed at all.
Yeah, because home court,
and they've been missing DeMar DeRozan. Don't get me wrong, but still they haven't been able to take advantage.
right, and the 1 seed for Toronto matters. If they could match up in the Eastern Conference Finals and have games 1 and 2, 5 and 7 at home, that would be huge for Toronto.
Oh yeah,
and possibly give them a puncher's chance.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, they only finished 1 game back last year of the 1 seed on the Cavs.
Yeah.
And something like that could steal the Raptors a game later in late May.
Yeah, and they've already faced the Cavs 3 times, so they can't get a
0-3.
direct...
Yeah, and they're 0-3, so they lost that tiebreaker. That's done.
Yeah, that's huge.
And
That's
they play
huge.
the next time they play, or the last time they play, is literally the last game of the season. So by that time, it's most likely going to be all wrapped up. If not, it could be a one game play-in for that in late April.
Should be fun to watch to see if they can do it, but I don't think they're going to do it.
You know what though, and the Cavs have a game against the Nets coming up, who have 7 less wins than anyone else in the league. I mean, we're gonna get an angry LeBron game coming up here.
Yep.
Could be against them. Could be against the Nets.
Could be against somebody. It happens. It will happen, is basically what we're going to go after here. But speaking of upcoming games, we're going to go around the block to finish this thing off. Bob, I know you had one that you're really looking forward to coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it is not the Nets and Cavs. That is not the around the block.
Aw.
Yeah, it is not that game. But it is the next Cavalier game after that. It's Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Coming up to the Q, 3:30 ABC. It's a great matchup for your first Sunday without football. Kind of nice bridge for everyone as we wait for the Super Bowl and whatnot. Cleveland Cavaliers are one of the few teams, I think it's 5 or 6, that Russell Westbrook, who again is averaging a triple-double, hasn't had a triple-double against. So it'd be interesting for him to see if he can do that. Probably will, having to carry that team as he has this season. And then a one-on-one matchup with Russ and Kyrie Irving. Always great to see 2 of the best go head-to-head. This is a great example of that. Can't wait to see it.
Sounds like a really fun one. Mine, I'm going to keep it simple. Boogie versus Joel Embiid on a Monday night. It's at 6 o'clock this upcoming week. And the Sixers, as we mentioned before, they're playing some damn good ball. Boogie and the Kings have won 2 in a row now. So we're going to see how that plays out, and hopefully there's no fighting. And that's going to do it for our show. We'd like to thank 16winsaring.com, where you'll find excellent content around the league from our great staff. Other great podcasts as well, part of the 16winsaring.com podcast network. We'd like to thank you as well for listening. We'll be back with you next week on the Scores Table. If you want to, you can follow myself on Twitter at Spin Davies, Bob at BobbyDigital2. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you again next week.